Endowing Jesus with all the forms of Jewish authority, scriptures call him priest, prophet, and king. We should ask ourselves, what does total authority look like? I'm still living into something that feels even close to an experiential answer, but the question's worth keeping in the back of our heads. Again, when Jeremiah wore a yoke to protect exile in Babylon, the false prophet Hananiah removed it from his neck and broke it. Jeremiah reminded him that the predictions of true prophets usually skew negative, that a positive prophecy can only be said to be true if the word and the passage of time collude in fulfillment. Keep that too in the back of your head. True prophecy leans toward the negative. When ourselves are loud, the gate for the sheep is silence. When ourselves crave, the gate for the sheep is non-indulgence. When ourselves equate divinity with our attractions, the gate for the sheep is recognizing divinity in our aversions as well. God made us people. The divine call is to play a forever elevating game of self, then give that self up. Jesus' highest self was totally united to God, but he humbled himself entirely, saying, Father, why have you forsaken me? He's fulfilling Psalm 22 in a way that wasn't fun or positive, didn't feel spiritual at all. And in the end, Jesus' highest act, foretold by the words, "This is my body," was feeling pain, hearing the silence, breathing his last. That to him was bread. Doing this in remembrance of me starts always necessarily as the Eucharist and spills into this being whatever's in front of us, suffering on a cross, doing the dirty dishes in the sink, hearing the bird song mix with the sounds of the trash truck. God includes and transcends everything. He creates, but knows the importance of letting go. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep. There's no language that's not performative. We say, remember and let go. And even just by forming the words with our mouths, we're forming our lives around this core of Jesus' teaching. His ministry makes an unclenched fist of all of us, allows us to reach out in compassion because he knows its wounds, because we are all in everything and everything's in us. The connection is the paradox of the Logos, and it sits uncomfortably sentient and other in the center of all of us. To wax autobiographical, others are weird things for introverts like me. How introverts can feel weird to themselves. It can be, well, a real hell. Remember, true prophecy skews toward the negative. Elsewhere, Jesus said, I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, you do to me. In today's chapter of John, he says, they will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. It was a prediction. Certainly, the disciples met many people they didn't know between the time Jesus said they will not follow a stranger and the moment he was crucified. Fair enough. We miss what's fulfilled right in front of us when we're caught up in ego and compulsive thought. Can you imagine the number of times Christ's word was fulfilled, the volume of teachings the disciples missed? Of course, egos are impermanent, just like the earth and the veil of the temple. Egos, too, are slowly shaken, then ripped apart. The scripture hints at how it'll happen. It even clues you in on its own hint dropping. Quote, Jesus used this figure of speech with them, it says, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. This was to foretell the non-intellectual, intuitive way he would teach them. Non-understanding would be the first of their figure ground reversals, the first conversion experience. And then Emmaus happened. Their hearts would burn within them. That's a feeling, not a thought. The stranger would break the bread. That's an action, not a thought. And it would all click. Aha. Ram Dass talks about how, after studying with Maharaji, when he'd approach someone with the intent to seduce them, he'd be suddenly confronted by his guru's eyes looking back at him through them. That's a clue to answering, what does it feel like to be endowed with all authority? It's an acceptance that what is the teacher. It increasingly means we're thrown off our center by nothing and yet open to everything, because you never know where your rabbi will pop up. And then the teacher, something we're confronted by, becomes a teaching, something we're called to do. We all swallowed the message whole when it came from that kid in the Matrix movie. There is no spoon, it is you that bends. It was a real groovy line after they added in the special effects. In reality, when it comes from Christ, there is no spoon is absolutely scandalous, because all it does is help us tackle the dirty dishes. There is no self helps us see ourselves as we are, foibles included. If what starts with what is Christ, and the empty, sinking feeling of an incomplete chore ends with an empty sink and the feeling of it is finished, if that were the case, could you bear fulfillment, including all of it? I know my own track record too well to think willingness comes easy, so I'm not sure. If you're anything like me, you get it. But for each of us, the I that's unsure has never, not for a moment, been who we are.